Hello everyone, my name is Young P. This is a video about Victor Chevalier. This is not a scripted video, this is not going to be edited, anything like that. I'm not really great at doing those things. It's more just a rant, you could say. It's really just me talking about my favorite character in this game and what he has become, in my opinion. Now, for ethos reasons, I suppose, I have been playing Tekken since Tekken 7, seriously. I have been playing only Victor in Tekken 8. He is the only character I have really touched in this game at all. I have performed really well in my scene with Victor. I have won countless offline locals, bigger, larger tournaments. I've won some online tournaments. I've placed really well in others like Paragon and TNS at points, and I recently got third at Genesis. Why am I telling you these things? Because I just want to provide you with some reasonings on why you should give any sort of heed to what I'm saying, solely for ethos purposes only, okay? So now that we have that out of the way, just because I believe I have some merit to talk about the character, because he's the only character I've ever really played in this game. Let's just start with season one and start from the beginning, right? So Victor essentially was a character that was defined, at least in my opinion, by his single high impact strikes. Moves like 1 plus 2, the shove, moves like down 2, moves like forward 1 plus 2, wall running 2. He has really impactful single hit, mostly mids that net you a lot of reward, but even moves like down back forward, things of that nature. Now, obviously, in Season 1, Victor had, I mean, egregious moves, right? Like back 1 plus 2, which was insanity. He had his broken throw and ever since season one, I mean, it has been touched a lot, but his wall game is just obnoxiously atrocious. That's the only way you can really put it. His wall Oki is probably the best in the game. I don't know about the best in the game, but it is really difficult to deal with. Especially back then, it was even more difficult because of the Oki it would provide you. Now it still has Oki, but it's not the same. Regardless, right? Victor also had stances. He had EI stance and he has Perfumer stance. He still has these stances today. Now, the thing about Victor in season one is that I would think, or I believe, right, that most people did not consider him a stance character because he really wasn't. He was a character that had strong fundamental tools, right, that had stances. He had stances, but he wasn't a stance character, if that makes sense, right? There may have been some other characters in season one that fit this archetype, right? And then obviously season two came along, but we'll get to that. Essentially, in my opinion, Victor was a character that had really not. He had essentially no mix up potential in neutral, and that his low pokes were pretty, I don't want to say horrendous, but they were not good. He had down three is whatever. Down four was not bad. Down back four is not a poke. Down 1-1, honestly, kind of trash, right? It has its purposes, I guess, but it's pretty trash. He had no low pokes, he had no throw game, really, but it didn't matter though because that was his identity. His identity is he's a character that has strong neutral, he has strong strikes. Kind of like Brian, he's looking for the opponent to make a mistake. He's looking to find that one high impact strike so that he can take you to the wall with his really, really good wall carry, and then he can enforce his obnoxious wall 50-50. That was essentially his game plan, right? Is it egregious in a lot of ways? Yes. I think that EI stance in itself doesn't leave a ton of room for counterplay. There are things that you can do, ways that you can step, you can power crush, things of that nature, right? But it has high coverage moves like EI2, which is that mid sword that's safe, that covers both directions, right? So you can't sidestep it. And then he also has down 1 plus 2, which is a fully tracking sweep that you can't react to. So you could see how this would be pretty obnoxious at the wall. But so essentially, he was a character that he had obnoxious things. I'm not saying he didn't. In EI stance, Perfumer's not nearly as obnoxious, but it's not. It's good, but it's not obnoxious. But the thing was that you had to work asterisk to get into EI stance. You had to put in effort. You had to take a risk, quotation marks, and what I mean by risk is that you had to do a wall running too, which yes, in itself is a risk because you can sidestep it, right? You had to catch your opponent making a mistake. They did something that was minus 12. Okay, now I get 222. Now I'm in EI stance. Things of that nature. He had to look for a mistake or capitalize on his opponent's timings, etc., in order to get into his highly damaging EI stance, in order to get the opponent to the wall. At higher level play, it was sort of difficult at times to play Victor because your opponent doesn't give you those vulnerabilities. They don't make as many mistakes. So if your opponent's not making mistakes, they're not allowing you to get into EI stance as often. They're not allowing you to get to the wall. So at that point, what are you achieving, right? It's hard to mix up your opponent. He still had his full crouch down 1+2, which is that shoe shine, but in season 1 that didn't even go into stance and it was still launch punishable. It was ass. It still is pretty bad, but it goes into stance now, so it's like there's a reason to use it. Even in season 1 you still needed to use it because you needed to make him at least think about the full crouch game so you could at least get something going. But, you know, back then he had to really, I don't want to say he had to he really had to work, to get into EI stance. It wasn't that hard per se, but he did have to take some risks and he had to capitalize on his opponent's mistakes. I thought this was okay. This is what I enjoyed about the character. I think it was a solid identity. He has strong tools, he has strong stances. He's not a stance character. He's a character that suffers in that he doesn't have great mix-up potential in the neutral, but he bullies you with these really high impactful strikes, gets you to the wall, and then obliterates you, right? But if you don't give him that leeway, Victor's going to suffer, right? That was the counterplay. There are ways to beat him. It's not. It's like when he's in EI stance. Yes, it is obnoxious, but in season 1, if you play correctly, he's not getting into EI stance safely that often. Yeah, he has the up forward 1-1 cheese in season 1 as well, but there are ways to beat that, such as, in my opinion, a quick mid strike, right? That will stop all of his options because he can't block an EI stance. But nevertheless, I thought Victor in season 1 was in a great spot. I loved the character. I thoroughly enjoyed him in season 1. I really liked him. Even then, I just like his design. I know a lot of people don't like him. I resonate with him a lot. I think he's cool. People change their tastes. I could hate him in the future, right? But I just think he's cool. I thought he was cool. Now, obviously, we move into season 2. And although season 3 is upon us, and it's kind of prompted this video for me, season 2, obviously, for all characters, was where it hit the fan, right? Victor essentially was the devs, right, at the time, saw him as a character that his strength was an EI stance. So their logical solution to that was let's give him way more options to get into EI stance, which in itself is not, I guess, a bad thing, right? I don't think it's a bad thing, but the way they did it was just, it wasn't it. Because now in season 2, Victor doesn't have to work to get into EI stance. He has way more options that he can do with way more safety, right? So they gave him, for instance, right, the shoe shine, which is the full crouch down 1+2, into perfumer stance, which then can go into EI stance. So they gave him another route to get into EI. They gave him upward 1-1, which is insane, right? His 13 frame punish went from being just a 13 frame that you could maybe sometimes do wall running to after, to every time I'm hitting you with Perfumer 1+2, whether you like it or not, because there's nothing you can do about it. There's no counterplay, and you're going to hold this mix, right? So that was a terrible step. You know, on paper, obviously he's way stronger, but for all the wrong reasons, right? Moreover, I'm trying to think of some other moves they added, but essentially they just made it way easier for him to get into EI stance, which I say in itself is not a problem, but it really is because his whole identity in my eyes was that he's a character that has really strong options in EI stance, and it's really obnoxious to deal with if you're the defender. But how often he gets into that stance is solely dependent on the player. How good are you
at defending against Victor. If you're really good, he's not going to get into it that often. It's going to make it easier for you. But now season 2 comes along, he just gets into EI stance kind of whenever he wants. Because as you know, this is where they turn Victor into stance in a button, in a stance, in a stance, in a stance, cancel stance in a stance, button in a stance, and the crouch dash. You get what I'm saying. It's obnoxious. It's ugly. I love Victor, but even as a Victor player myself, watching players like, and it's not even like it's a bad thing. You're supposed to play him in that way, but watching that type of play from Victor, just watching him on the screen is just so. It's the ugliest Tekken you can watch, genuinely. And I understand that. I play him, but I can still see that, right? I can still see that. But we didn't even talk about the most egregious addition, which is wall running 1+2, right? This is a low that gets him into EI stance for free at +6 or whatever, and it is a mix up with his wall running 2. Who asked for this? Why do we have this? What is this? I remember when I was reading the patch notes in Season 2, my initial reaction was not, obviously we wanted them to adjust the game and make it more down to earth, right? Back to basics. Back to basics. But I remember seeing this move, and my initial reaction was just disgust or like just shock. Like, what is this? Victor did not need this. That was my main reaction, was that he did not need this move. Why does he have it? Who was complaining that, oh, Victor, it can be hard to get in sometimes and really mix up your opponent. So we gave him a low to mix up with your wall running mid, right? So that should alleviate that issue. But that was never the issue. We didn't need a mix up with wall running 2. That wasn't the purpose of wall running 2. The purpose of wall running 2 was to pressure the whiff, was to get into your more useful EI stance to pull out those tools. It did a lot of things for you to push them towards the wall. You got to fish for counter hits. It did so many things, right? We did not need a low mix up for it. That's like the last thing he needed. But they gave him this obnoxious low that now he can complement with his mid. So it's another thing the defender has to worry about on top of, okay, now he can transition into like, yeah, or perfumer from these buttons, and then he can cancel it. So I'm thinking of him, a bunch of different things. It's super obnoxious. I think at this point, right, I've been playing Season 2 Victor all this time pretty consistently. I've still been going to tournaments, all that kind of stuff, and having success with him. But I felt like I never truly, even though I've been doing really well with him in Season 2, I feel like I never embraced, or like I never really peaked with him because I never truly embraced the stance and a stance and a button and a stance kind of play style. Now, obviously, you're not doing just button and a button and a button. You got to mess with your timings a little bit, obviously, and whatnot. But I never really embraced that, so I felt like that was detrimental to me as a player, right? Because in reality, that's the correct way to play him. At least at this point, for the most part, because I didn't mention that in Season 2, they also nerfed his like fundamental tools. Like 1+2, they nerfed that. I believe they made it have less pushback and more recovery on block, which is fine, sure. That move was pretty obnoxious. It still is really good. And they nerfed down back forward. They nerfed the range on that. Obviously, they nerfed back 1+2. I think that was before Season 2, like a hot fix or something like that. But essentially, they just tuned down his like more basic Tekken tools, and they embraced and improved his stance, heavy mix-up stuff. And they also gave him a EI down one out of EI stance, which is on its own even made. Although they did nerf the Oki mechanics of Tekken 8, so it changed Victor's wall Oki and made it less egregious. They then gave him EI down one, which enables some even more atrocious Oki because it covers so many options for him. I'm not going to get in the details of why it does, but like he also didn't need that, but now he has, this makes his wall Oki even more obnoxious, right? Sure, whatever. That's not necessarily that big of a problem, but it is when you make it so easy to access that, right? And it's like I said, Victor doesn't have the best low pokes. Now he has this aggressive, more forward-moving low swipe that on counter hit nets him like plus 13. Not like you can get a 13 frame punish, but like 13 frames where they have to block. Sure, it's minus 14, but like it, he's got a mid to cover it. So what are we doing? What are we doing, guys? What are we doing? So at this point, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this sucks to play. It doesn't even feel good really to embrace that kind of playstyle as the player, at least in my opinion. But we're copium. We're gonna wait for season three. We're, they're gonna fix it, guys. They gotta fix it. But I knew deep in my soul, they can't fix it. You can't. I think we all knew. That's the sad part. I think we all knew deep down this was not going to happen. You cannot remove moves that have been added to the game, right? You cannot remove stance transitions that have already been added to his kit because it doesn't matter what the top echelon of players say. We're in the minority. Most people are not where we're at, right? They're just having fun with the game, just hitting buttons. So why does that matter to them? They're going to log in and say, why are my favorite characters' moves removed? That's a terrible feeling for those types of players. I understand that. I think we just had hope, that maybe they would just tune down things, even if these moves are still here, just make them worse, I guess. I don't really know. But I think the nail in the coffin, obviously, is season three. Victor has a new move, right? In up back two. Up back two, I'm pretty sure it's up back two. Up back one, up back two. I did not mention that one of Victor's traits that made him like a huge counterplay thing with him was that you can side walk right, sidestep right, a lot of his best options, like his wall running 1+2, his wall running 2, his down 2. Some of his best moves you can sidestep to the right, which makes it a lot easier for defending against Victor. That was really a glaring weakness he had. Now, obviously, right, you can still adjust your timings, right? In a higher level play, it's not like you can't use these moves. You just, forward walk to adjust or whatever, right? You have up forward two, right? So it wasn't even a problem. It's part of his identity. It's totally fine. Characters should have those weaknesses. But they gave him, I'm going crazy. I'm taking crazy pills. They gave him up back two, which tracks to his right and is like a god move. What are we doing? Back to basics? What are we doing? They essentially said, I remember reading the patch notes, I don't have them in front of me, but they have entailed that we see that Victor, we want him to be a character that really is just highly into his stances. He's a stance character. And season 1, he was not. He was a character that had strong tools, that had stances. Season 2, he's a stance character. Season 3, if you're not playing him utilizing his stances, you're not playing him right. That is essentially where we're at now. He's only played one way. I'm getting ahead of myself. Up back two. This move is on its in itself. It's not that insane, but it's insane. What am I saying? It's like super mega reward for like no risk. It tracks to his weak side. Doesn't track to the other one, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. It tracks to his weak side. It's a weapon. You can't parry it. It's a mid. It's -5 on block. I think it's like 17 frame startup. On counter hit, it knocks down for a guaranteed expulsion. Okay? That in itself, why does he have this? Right? It also transitions into, of course it does, into Perfumer stance. Of course it does. Why wouldn't it? You can hold forward and you can go into Perfumer. On hit or on block, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it's both. That in itself is like, what are we doing? Like, are we just patching all of his weaknesses? Like, what are we doing? I thought we were going back to they said they wanted to hone in on the character's strengths and weaknesses, but like with Victor, it's like every update he's just getting his weaknesses patched over and just removed, right? He's not weak to sidestep right anymore. You just do up back two. Not to mention, obviously, if you play Victor or if you played against him, he can charge it. What? Why can he do that? He can charge this move, right? There are a lot of moves in the game that can do this now, or a few, like Heihachi. He can charge it, and on normal hit, it knocks down, I'm pretty sure, or it might not knock down, but it does a chunky amount of damage. On block, it's +3 or something, and goes into stance because, of course, we want to just give you easy access to your powerful stance tools. But on counter hit, it launches. Like, what are we doing? This guy is. What? It's like, at the end of the day, I saw a lot of Victor players like rejoicing, like, okay, I'm back. I think my mic cut off. Anyways, like I was saying, I saw a lot of Victor players, right, rejoicing And not everyone, obviously, but a large amount of them are like, dude, we're eating good. Victor's top 10 now. We're cooking. And yes, at face value, obviously, if you're a Tekken 8 enthusiast, yes, Victor is so obnoxious right now that it hurts me. It hurts me in my soul. It hurts me so bad. I have keychains of this man. I got a t-shirt of this man, okay? He is my friend. We're friends. But what have they done to him? This is not good. In that they have essentially assassinated him. They have character assassinated his playstyle into a character that has to work with the strong neutral tools to get into stance where he can inflict heavy damage at the wall, right? Who has strong wall carry. He's a character that wants to get you to the wall and then kill you. But to do that, he really has to earn it. Now I say earn it because it's not like he's got to I'm struggling out here, right? But he has to capitalize on mistakes, and you have to really let him, get into stance, right? He has to work for it to a degree, right? He doesn't have a lot of moves in season one that just put him into stance like that. It's far less simple in that way. Into a character that everything he does goes into stance. Everything he does. Not literally, but his best tools just go into stance. His stances go into stance. His buttons go into stance. And when he's in stance, you're guessing. So you know how we said in season 1 or earlier, right? It's really obnoxious to do with Victor when he's in EI stance, but at least you don't have to deal with it that much if you're a better player. Now it doesn't matter if you're a better player. You're going to deal with it no matter what you do because he's got moves like up back 2, forward forward 1+2. His 13 frame puts him directly into EI stance. He forget he shits out stance pressure, right? This character just everything he does just goes into stance, and he puts you into these 50-50s, which, yes, depending on the scenario, they do have counterplay. I'm not saying he doesn't have counterplay, right? But it is so obnoxious to deal with, especially now, right, with the addition of up back 2. But it doesn't even feel good to play as the player, obviously. You feel gross. I feel filthy. I feel obnoxious. And the bad part is, the worst part is if I try to play him more simple, more honest, I'm not playing him correctly. That is what makes me the most sad. If I'm not playing him the way they want me to play him, I'm not doing it right. Victor is just totally unrecognizable from his season 1 counterpart. He is obnoxious to play against. He's obnoxious to play. He is atrocious to look at on the screen when he is played effectively. And it just makes me really sad because, like I said, I'm a big Victor fan. I He's the only character I've played in this game, and I was proud that I'm a Victor specialist. This is my guy. But now it just feels like, what am I doing? I'm doing myself a disservice by playing this character. That's what it feels like. It feels like I'm giving in. It feels like, if I want to play Victor, I have to play Tekken 8 the way they want me to play it, right? Which, I mean, it's not like there's a other way to play it anyways. It's Tekken 8, but it just doesn't feel great. As far as what I'll be doing from here, I don't think I'm gonna quit cold turkey. I don't think that's even realistic for me, just given the amount of time I've put into the game. I know a lot of people feel the same. I'm still gonna try and play and find some enjoyment out of the game, but it's just I feel like I'd really had to get this off my chest. It's just obviously it's not like it's a game, guys. At the end of the day, it's a video game, so it's whatever. But if it's when it's something you care so much about, it just doesn't feel great. But anyway, that was my rant. Hopefully, it wasn't too egregious to listen to. Hopefully, I articulated my points across correctly. Let me know how you feel about Victor in the comments. Maybe I'm wrong, guys. Maybe you really like him. He's in a better spot now, or you think the vision is better, or whatever. Let me know. Just my opinion. But yeah, this has been Young P, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Thank you.